Our lives are shaped by the algorithm. You choose which restaurants to try out based on TikTok's recommendations. You watch The White Lotus because HBO suggests it. You listen to music served up by Spotify Shuffle and watch videos that pop up on your YouTube homepage. You develop your personal sense of style by looking to your favorite influencers. Your very personality, your identity, is shaped by the algorithm. But it's not only you, it's me too. It's our entire generation. Half of Gen Z reports being almost constantly online on social media sites like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and in the process, we become isolated from our friends, isolated from our families, isolated from society. Heck, we're even isolated from ourselves. This algorithmic isolation is creating enormous negative impacts for Gen Z. Problems such as the loneliness crisis, right-wing radicalization, the loss of meaning in life, and the death of personality and culture all stem from algorithmic isolation. And on top of all that, this isolation impedes our ability to organize and mobilize, making it even harder to solve these issues. Tackle one issue alone, and the gears of the algorithm continue turning, clawing back any movement we made in the positive direction. But tackle the heart of algorithmic isolation itself, and the rest of the issues soften.
Hi, hello. One of the reasons you're scrolling right now is because you're alone and you're looking for human faces to engage with you because you feel very alone with your problems right now. There's a reason that you're scrolling. You're just isolated. And in the past, humans did not have to go through all of the normal difficulties of emotional human life on their own. They had a community to lean on. And you happen to be one of the first generations of humans that really doesn't have solid access to that, or at least has the ability to isolate all the time.
Just like the generations before us who had to fight for their values during World War II, or the Civil Rights Movement, or September 11th, or the Great Recession, Gen Z faces its own existential challenge. The meteoric ascent of social media has given rise to Gen Z's final boss: algorithmic isolation. You are a fucking loser. Now hold on, before you kick my ass, let me explain. If you're Gen Z like me, statistically speaking, not that I understand statistics, you hang out with your friends 70% less than folks our age did in 2003. 70% less. If you're Gen Z, that's gotta be so embarrassing. I mean, like, guys, come on, are we really gonna be okay with the fact that millennials spent 3.5 times more time with their friends than we do? Like, are we really gonna be okay with millennials being cooler than us? It's embarrassing. Like, I don't think that I can show my face outside after hearing that. Not that I go outside. Also, to the millennials out there, I just want to say I'm just kidding. You know, I love millennials. I have a friend that's a millennial. So I couldn't possibly be anti-millennial. But okay, you may be asking, Kobe, what's so wrong with not hanging out with my friends? At least I'm not a disgusting, Harry Potter loving, doggo pupper, oh my god, I did a thing millennial. True, you may not be insufferable, but your social isolation and the isolation of people just like you is still an enormous issue. Social isolation has a huge impact on mental health, and it's one of the leading contributors to the Gen Z mental health crisis that we are experiencing across the nation and the globe. In fact, being socially isolated is worse for your health than smoking 15 cigarettes every day. 15 goddamn cigarettes every goddamn day. And it's clear that social media and its algorithms are linked to this loneliness crisis in Gen Z Americans. Although social media can facilitate connections between people in the online world, let's be real. Talk to any person who uses social media and they will tell you that social media is not a good place to form deep, meaningful connections, and strong bonds with their peers. And the data backs that up. People who use social media to maintain their relationships feel much more lonely than those who don't. The average American spends 2.5 hours on social media every single day. That is 2.5 hours that every American is spending on social media instead of going outside, hanging out with their friends, meeting new people. This is even worse for Gen Z, who grew up using social media and have never known a world without it. As a result, Gen Z is spending less time with our friends, less time with our families, less time with the people that we care about than ever before. Instead, our personal relationships are being replaced by online relationships, which also come with their own set of problems. In the words of former US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, it's hard to know who's being real online, and it's hard for people to be themselves online, and that is a recipe for loneliness. And that definitely resonates. All the pictures we see on Instagram, all the influencers on TikTok, they all seem perfect. But that's because people only post and the algorithm only shows us the highlights of people's lives. We rarely see moments of weakness or vulnerability, and that distorts our perception of what's genuine and what's fake. And on top of that, we also feel the need to keep up appearances online, even further contributing to the disconnect between social media and real life. And all of this combines together to create levels of loneliness that the world has never seen before. The loneliness crisis is such a huge issue that half of Americans report feeling lonely. And that was even before the pandemic, which split us further apart and reinforced the dominance of social media and algorithms in our lives.
Loneliness is an epidemic. People who are lonely are more prone to Alzheimer's disease. They're more prone to depression. Humans are a relational species. We're not polar bears. We need to be together.
Now, you may be asking, Kobe, compared to our ancestors, Gen Z doesn't have it so bad if all they have to deal with is loneliness, right? At least they don't have to fight in any wars. Oh shit, wait, never mind. Well, at least society is advanced enough that they don't have to face the same plagues like they used to. Oh shit, never mind. At least they don't have to live in a feudal society where they pay billionaire overlords just to be able to afford rent and put food on the table. Oh shit, never mind. Okay, well, at least the economy's doing well. Sure. Loneliness may not be as bad as the horrors that generations before us have had to face, but I wouldn't be so certain that the loneliness crisis is benign. Again, might I remind you that loneliness is worse for your health than smoking 15 cigarettes every day? And might I remind you that loneliness is the experience of half of America? Belonging is something that all humans need to live worthwhile, fulfilling lives. And right now, Gen Z just isn't getting that. But still, the loneliness crisis is just one of many repercussions of algorithmic isolation. Let's take a look at some of the others. Ever wonder why there's nothing to watch on Netflix or YouTube anymore? Ever wonder why the quiet local coffee shop that you used to visit all the time is now overrun by a line of 40 Gen Zs going around the block? Ever wonder why every Gen Z influencer home that you see has some combination of these 5 pieces of furniture? It's because our algorithms have isolated us from ourselves. What do I mean by that? Half of folks age 18 to 29 report being online almost constantly. That means we don't have time to sit down in silence and really think through what it is that we like, what we think looks good aesthetically, and what values we care about as people. In other words, we don't have time to reflect on the things that make up our identity, that define us as people. That time that we would otherwise spend developing a personal sense of values, style, and aesthetics is instead replaced by the algorithm, which feeds us content that it thinks that we like, that it thinks will make us stay on the platform for longer. So instead of taking the time to develop our identities, we replace it with a shitty substitute. What other people like. We buy the newest lip balm because that's what we see everyone on TikTok using. We go to a cafe that's 40 minutes away because it went viral. We get this one fucking lamp, even though it looks like complete garbage, because that's what the goddamn algorithm has shown us that everyone and their mothers has. Sorry. I get really heated about that one lamp in particular. When we're getting all of our opinions from other people on TikTok or YouTube spoon-fed to us directly by the algorithm, we start to move towards a sort of society where everyone is the same, where we're all getting our values and opinions, our likes and dislikes based on what the algorithm feeds us rather than by thoughtfully reflecting upon our identities. That is what I mean when I say that algorithms are isolating us from ourselves, leading to the death of style, culture, and personality. As I mentioned earlier, half of folks age 18 to 29 report being online almost constantly. This might not feel like a surprise to you because technology and social media have become such normal and dominant parts of our lives. You may even believe that this is not a bad thing. After all, with technology like computers, the internet, and ChatGPT at our fingertips, our potential for learning and productivity is near limitless. And hey, if you're able to use all these sorts of technologies to gain more knowledge and grow as a person, then I commend you. Fucking nerd. And at the same time, we cannot deny that social media and the isolation that it's fostered has created an environment ripe for right-wing radicalization, especially in young men. And hey, before all you young men watching click off this video, let me say that I'm not here to bash on young men. There's a time and a place to rag on and make fun of people, but now is not that time. That's right, no joking on this channel. Which is why, in this section, I want to explore what has made so many young men lose so many brain cells that they would believe that right-wing— Just kidding. Fuck. I probably lost all the young men for that joke. What's up, ladies? But even though this effect is especially significant in young men, this isn't a men-only issue. No. Gen Zs across the board are experiencing a rightward shift, with many folks falling consciously or unconsciously down the right-wing pipeline. But what makes it so easy for Gen Z to fall down this pipeline at such alarming rates? Once again, algorithmic isolation rears its ugly head. It has been shown time and again that Gen Z's feeling of isolation and social media usage are deeply intertwined, and that can come with dire political consequences. According to a recent literature review on the matter, social exclusion has been shown A, to increase the willingness to fight and die, B, to promote the approval for extreme, even violent political parties and actions, and C, to push the willingness to engage in illegal and violent action for a political cause. The more we are isolated from our peers and our society, the more likely we are to adopt radical and even violent views. Over the past decade, right-wing influencers have taken this tendency and ran away with it, using social media algorithms to convince and mold the views of their audiences and send them further down the right-wing pipeline. And it's worked astonishingly well. Donald Trump saw a 12-point swing in support from young men from 2020 to 2024, and a 7-point swing in young women. Now, I don't want to say that social isolation is the only reason for the swing in Gen Z's political preferences in 2024. Along with a global shift to the right, cost of rent, cost of living, cost of groceries all contribute as well. Think about it from the shoes of a Gen Z voter. Or if you are a Gen Z voter, imagine yourself in your own beat-down Air Force Ones. Think about it. The social media algorithms and the mainstream news, let's be real, is blasting you with endless streams of content and information that continuously stokes your fear, your outrage, and your despair. The economy is in the gutter, and you're working full-time struggling to afford rent and groceries. And everyone around you at your age is also grinding their asses off at work, with no prospects for retirement, no prospects for starting a family, no prospects for owning a home. You feel isolated and hopeless. And one day, when you're watching your favorite content creator, you see this guy that says he's gonna solve everything by shaking up the government, kicking out the migrants, and fixing the economy. Heck, if you didn't know better, you might just vote for him. The algorithmic isolation and the despair that Gen Z feels with the direction our society is going in today makes the landscape ripe for right-wing radicalization. The most subtle, but possibly most impactful effect of algorithmic isolation is the barriers that it creates to genuine organization and mobilization. This is why algorithmic isolation is so damaging. This is why it's Gen Z's final boss. Firstly, the social media algorithm dictates what information we see, and depending on what we engage with, it recommends us more and more and more of that content, sending us down an ideological rabbit hole over the course of months and years, until we're trapped in the depths of an echo chamber. The nature of the algorithm makes it so that we rarely, if ever, see opposing viewpoints or unique perspectives that might cause us to get angry and close out the app. And this is happening on the scale of our entire society. Everyone has their own unique algorithm that feeds them their own uniquely curated stream of content, all of which is designed to maximize their engagement. No wonder it's so difficult to agree on anything with your family or your neighbors. You're living in two practically different worlds. I mean that literally. Unless you seek it out, none of the content and information that you see is going to be the same as any of the content and information that your mom sees, and vice versa. How then can you communicate? How can you agree on anything when the underlying set of facts and assumptions that you and your mom are working off of are fundamentally and drastically different? Secondly, again, social media algorithms isolate us, and that is a problem for organizing and for mobilizing in our generation. You can't get your friends to vote if you don't have any friends. You can't get your organization to come protest Trump's tariffs with you if you're not a part of any organization. You can't mobilize anyone for an important cause if you're isolated from society. And likewise, society can't mobilize you for an important cause if you're isolated from society. You may be saying, but Kobe, social media helps social movements grow and gain new people. It helps people learn about local protests in their area. True. For now. Keep in mind that social media platforms and the big tech companies that own these platforms control everything that passes through them, as does our government for that matter. If a popular movement ever does gain the momentum to meaningfully oppose the interests of these companies or of our government, they could easily silence all communications at the flick of a switch, as they have done in the past. As this issue of algorithmic isolation continues to grow and grow, Gen Z's ability to organize and mobilize will continue to get harder and harder. And all of these problems, the loneliness crisis, the death of style and culture, the right-wing radicalization pipeline, all of these problems will spiral further and further beyond our control. Tackle it now, and we have a chance. But let algorithmic isolation run its course, and we may never get another shot. This is the gravity of Gen Z's final boss. In recent years, we've seen a sort of backlash against digital media and algorithmic control over our lives. On one hand, we've seen a comeback in physical media. Vinyl record players have been back in style for around a decade now, and cassette players are now seeing a resurgence as well, with modern artists even releasing new music on cassette. Apart from being tactile and satisfying to use, these forms of music have satisfied another itch. In a world of algorithms, record players and cassette players force their users to commit to a single album, a single set of songs, and listen to them in order without shuffling, without skipping around. This has brought back a level of intentionality and connection to the music. If the user gets bored, so be it. They still gotta listen to the songs anyways, so might as well enjoy them and vibe out. In a similar vein, we've also seen the return of people reading physical books, which is crazy because I always thought that those things were kind of just for show, you know? So that people think that you're intelligent when they come over to your apartment and see your bookshelf, or so that they think you're mysterious when you're pretending to read your book on the metro. But I guess that's not true, huh? I guess people are actually reading books nowadays. The resurgence of books is once again a backlash against the world of algorithmically curated content. Instead of getting your podcasts or YouTube videos or TikToks served up to you on a silver platter, reading a book forces you to be deliberate. It forces you to spend time thinking about what you care about, what you want to learn about, and which topics you're willing to spend the next couple of days or weeks thinking about, so that you can choose the right book that's right for you. Or you could just do what I do and pick whichever book has the coolest cover and go with that. I mean, it doesn't really matter what's on the inside anyways, when all I really care about is other people seeing me with a cool looking book in my hands. Just kidding. That's a joke. Reading is good, kiddos. At the policy level, there has been a nationwide push to ban phones in schools. In fact, 9 states have already instituted phone bans across their schools, and every state but Nevada and Wyoming have at least some sort of ban proposal, policy recommendation, or pilot program that sets the stage for potential phone bans in the future. And even in states without statewide phone bans, some schools have chosen to take the initiative to ban phones themselves. In fact, over 3/4 of schools across the nation say that they prohibit cell phone usage for non-academic purposes. And while this may seem like a really high number, keep in mind that teachers also have to actually enforce these bans, which is easier said than done. With classroom sizes ballooning and teachers being stretched between more and more students every year, it becomes increasingly difficult for them to enforce these policies. Still, there is a concerted movement to ban phones in schools across the US, which proponents argue would help students build social skills and reduce bullying, thereby alleviating the social isolation that is so prevalent in young folks today. All right, Gen Z, what are we gonna do to combat the horrors of algorithmic isolation? I believe that strengthening community is the most important thing right now. And that process can take a lot of different shapes. For you, it could mean chatting for a minute or two with the cashier the next time you get groceries. It could mean joining a local organization or engaging with the folks attending a community event. It can look like throwing a party for your friends. It can mean FaceTiming a bunch of people that you haven't seen in a while. It can even mean saying yes to when your friend invites you to hang out. Really, I want us to challenge ourselves to think about what community means to us and how we can go about strengthening that community. If we're gonna tackle this problem, we're gonna need it. We're gonna need each other. Okay, what else? Well, I think that underlying any sense of community is the requirement of having the time and energy to nurture that community in the first place. We can't join an organization or throw a party with our friends if we're working all day to pay rent and put food on the table. We can't spend time with the people that we care about if we feel like we need to grind on our side hustle every day after work, just to make ends meet. That's why, at the same time that we fight to strengthen our communities, it's just as important to fight for our economic well-being. The fact of the matter is that the state of our society right now is completely cooked. Our entire generation, all of Gen Z, is looking towards our future and seeing chaos and instability. Forget even owning a home, forget saving for retirement. We don't even know if we'll have a nation 5 years from now. I do have hope, though. Hear me when I say this. In 2028, for the first time, Gen Z and millennials will make up over half of the electorate. We've been waiting for so long, y'all. And our time is here. It's here. We have the ability to truly shape our society in a way that we have never been able to before. But we can't just sit around and wait for 2028 to roll around. We have to organize now. Get out there. Make our voices heard. And it can only happen if you and your friends, if we mobilize. Thank you for watching. If you learned anything from the past 25 minutes, you wouldn't have made it this far into the video, you fucking dumbass. Just kidding, I appreciate you. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, subscribe, and I will see you in the real world.